Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Strange New Worlds here on the Fandom Podcast Network, as well as on the BQN Network. Hopefully, you're enjoying this double dose of Union Federation that you've been getting the last few weeks, and we'll continue to get as long as we have both the Orville and Strange New Worlds going on. But for this episode, this is episode 134, and we are here to talk the latest episode of Strange New Worlds, the Serene Squall. But I can't go pirating without at least the first mate. A crew, I might be a little low on the crew. We got some people out on vacation and doing some recovery in sick bay, but you know what? I know I can always count on this guy because he is, I'm not going to call him Captain Jack. I'm the captain. What can I say? But he is a top-notch security officer, and he keeps telling me a pirate's life's for him. He is my brother from another mother and co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, matey Kevin Reitzel.
Shh, dude. I'm getting ready to pull off an Alpha Braga 4. I'm going to mutiny this, man. I'm going to take it over.
You're not supposed to say that to the captain.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Never mind. Cut that.
What is going on, Kevin? We just had maybe one of the funnest episodes of Strange New Worlds yet.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. A lot of fun to rewatch as well for this podcast, and I'm digging this crew. Loving what I'm seeing.
Yeah, so we're not even going to waste time. We're going to get right into it. Let's activate that quantum drive. Now, of course, before we go full deep into this episode, we might be giving away a few pirate secrets. So before we go any further, that's right. We're going to talk about this episode backwards, forwards, and maybe even walk the plank just to get into the deep details of it. So if you have, there might be a lot of that in this episode too. If you have not watched the latest episode of Strange New Worlds, go watch it, come back, join us here on YouTube, or join this, listen to this podcast, whether you're listening on the Fandom Podcast Network or the BQN, because we're going to have a little fun and dive deep into the latest episode of Strange New Worlds. And it all starts off, let's just kick things off with our Captain's Log, our episode and synopsis. Of course, this episode aired June 16th, 2022. And in this episode, the Enterprise travels to a far-flung colony that has requested assistance with an anti-pirate raid defense, and per Counselor Aspen's advice, rendezvous with the pirate ship Serene Squall, which Pike suspects is trafficking the colonists. Pike and a landing party beam over to the ship only for its crew to board the Enterprise and take the Starfleet officers hostage. Number One and Ortegas stall the pirates while Spock and Aspen escape, but Aspen reveals herself to be the Serene Squall's captain, Angel, and forces T'Pring to warp over to give an ultimatum. T'Pring releases Angel's husband, a prisoner she is attempting to rehabilitate, or she lets Angel kill Spock. T'Pring chooses the latter, but Spock breaks off their engagement and passionately kisses Chapel. Captain Angel tries to fire on T'Pring's ship, but Pike warps in aboard the Serene Squall, announcing he has used his culinary skills and the threat of dealing with the Klingons to encourage a mutiny on board, while Number One locks the Enterprise's controls. Captain Angel escapes with the other pirate, while the other pirates surrender. Spock tells Chapel their friendship is strictly platonic, and resumes his engagement with T'Pring. He tells them both he thinks Angel's husband is his half-brother, Sybok. Now, Kevin, rule number one.
Sybok. That name sounds really familiar.
But rule number one, don't take the bridge while the mutiny is still going on.
This is true. This is very, very true. And I kind of get the feeling the end of this episode kind of heads towards the final frontier.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. So, Kevin, I'm gonna hit you up. Your first reactions on this episode.
Sybok, baby. We got teased with Sybok. I love the fact that we finally get a Star Trek TV series giving mention and visual representation, a tease anyway, to Sybok. And, it's probably common knowledge that most people think that Star Trek V of the original cast set of movies is the worst one. I do not, by the way. My least favorite is actually the first one. Not that I don't like it. I do like it. It's just, I like all those movies, but there's just so many fun character moments in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, that I absolutely love. And it's got my favorite line of all time by Kirk. What does God need with a starship? And the actor that played Sybok was great. And I thought it was a fun movie. And I've warmed up to it a lot over the last 20 years. But back to the episode and our crew and cast here. I love, again, character moments in this episodic episode. I'll keep reminding people of that. I love this episodic return. It's great. I love our guest star, too. I thought she was fun, too. We'll get more into that as well. Jesse James Keitel is Dr. Aspen. And just another episode, too, that I think that Anson Mount shined as Captain Christopher Pike. What about you?
Kevin, I got done watching this, and all I could think about was the conversation we've had on the last 2 episodes of Union Federation covering the Orville. This has the fun I've been looking for. This episode was a blast, and you could tell that the cast and crew were just so enjoying themselves, just even in their performances. Anson Mount was hamming it up during that scene when he's trying to talk them into letting him cook for them, and I mean, it was just so much fun. I thought it was an amazing guest star who I don't think we're done with on Strange New Worlds by a long shot. Also, too, like you, the mention of Sybok, they tying us into the original films, and like you, I don't think I actually revisited Star Trek V about 6 months ago. It was on cable. I caught it right as it was starting. So I sat down and watched it. It wasn't as bad as I remember. I think, like you, there's some great character moments in it, and that's what makes it kind of shine. And we've got a little bit of mystery around Spock, which is always fun, because up until Strange New Worlds, there's a lot of mystery about Spock and a lot of things we didn't necessarily know from the television series or the films that we've we're finding out about Spock. So it's always interesting when we find out more about Spock. But no, Kevin, this episode was just an absolute blast. One of the most fun hours of television I've watched in a good while.
Agreed. Definitely.
So, but let's talk about the cast, Kevin, because of course we had our usual outstanding, Anson Mount, Ethan Peck, Jess Bush, Christina Chong even had a couple of good moments in this, as did Rebecca Romaine, as always. But we had a guest star this week who introduced a very fun new character into the Star Trek universe. Jesse James Keitel playing Dr. Aspen / Captain Angel. I hope this character is coming back in future episodes of Strange New Worlds, whether it's this season or somewhere down the line, because she brought a lot of fun and intrigue to this character.
Yeah, definitely. And there was moments between her and Spock when you're watching this episode for the first time that were a lot of fun and interesting to watch before you find out, who she really is. And when I was rewatching it, knowing what was going to happen, I was still kind of like digging those moments, and this conversation in the turbo lift and stuff like that. And the way that she was able to turn and you find out who she really is, and then have some fun in the captain's seat and putting her legs up and stuff like that, I thought was great.
Yeah, and I just gotta say, I'm looking at Jesse James Keitel's IMDb. This is somebody who is definitely on the rise. Did the TV series Forever Alone in 2020. Was on that TV series Big Sky from 2020 to 2022. Had a run on Queer as Folk in 2022, and now Star Trek Strange New Worlds. This is an actress who is definitely on the rise, and I think we're going to see some interesting things from going forward. And like I said, a great addition to the Star Trek universe with this particular character too, and I can't wait for more.
I want to give a shout out to director Sydney Freeland. She's from New Mexico, and she's been very busy with some episodic television as well. She did some episodes of Reservation Dogs, Rutherford Falls, The Walking Dead World Beyond, did an episode there. Her Story. So she's been busy, and I thought this was a well-directed episode as well. So I want to give her some props.
Yeah. Also, I want to just throw out too, and doing some research on Jesse James Keitel in an interview regarding this episode of Strange New World, she said it was so much fun to be a trans actor playing the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yep. So she just seems to have a lot of energy, and you could definitely see it within the episode. But Kevin, you always do some great research and bring up some things, and of course, that's also to finding some articles from our good friends over at Den of Geek.
Yes, love heading over to them. Love their articles and their episodic articles too. And we have another one by Lacey Bauer here. Love her writing. Star Trek Strange New Worlds Episode 7, the Serene Squall, the latest episode, is a rollicking adventure involving space pirates, hidden identities, a casual mutiny, and more. Truth be told, I keep waiting for Star Trek Strange New Worlds to disappoint me, because while certain aspects of both Star Trek Discovery, Saru and Tarina's romance, the general existence of grudge, cool giant glow cloud aliens, and Star Trek Picard, Patrick Stewart existing, John Delancey returning, have been wonderful. Both shows have had their fair share of rough patches in recent seasons, moments where watching them felt a whole lot more like an obligation than it did a joy. I think you and I can both relate to that when we talk about podcasting and keeping up with episodes, Kyle.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a very fair assessment with those two things. The last couple of seasons, I'm not gonna say they were terrible, but they were up and down. There was maybe a little bit of inconsistency.
It did feel more like a job at times too, trying to stay on top of those. She goes on to say, but we're 7 episodes into the season of Strange New Worlds, 2/3 of the way through the inaugural run, and it's still incredible. In fact, I'd probably argue that this show is that rare series that is actually getting stronger with each episode it releases, as we get to know these characters better and watch the relationships grow. This is a lot to say that the Serene Squall is another fantastic and deeply enjoyable hour, a rollicking space adventure with serious emotional underpinnings and a story that shows us why this crew is so darn good together, even if it pulls off a complicated bait and switch plot. Kyle, I wanted to touch on something that she said here, that this episode is getting stronger with each episode in its release. Would you agree with that?
I think this series has just it hit on a high note, and it continues to just grow and grow stronger. And I think that's a credit to the writers. It's a credit to an amazing cast and crew. And I honestly, Kevin, I'm going to say it right now, even though this show is so strong, I feel like we've just barely hit the tip of the iceberg with this cast and what they're capable of doing with each of these characters. There's still several characters that I feel we have not even dipped our toe into their waters on their backstory and what's going on with them.
Agree with you completely. And yes, this show just keeps on humming. It's great. Every week, Anson Mountain is great, she says, but there's something kind of magical about the way he depicts the deployment of Pike's good old boy charm to foment unrest among the pirate crew. He encourages them to sell the Starfleet crew to the Klingons and maybe start an intergalactic incident in the process. This man is unstoppable. We've known this cast for 7 episodes, but the chemistry that this group of actors is so darn good, from the easy way they all play off one another while lamenting the poor quality of the Orion's cooking, to their quick-thinking collaboration on the bridge as they brainstorm ideas to get themselves out of life or death trap. As a character, Pike is always going on about the collaboration and listening to others and encouraging out-of-the-box thinking. It's really nice to see that this is not just a line he uses, but is a legitimate leadership philosophy that he implements on the regular. I love all of them, is what I'm saying. For all that, Star Trek Strange New Worlds is built on its weekly space adventures, and this one does have literal pirates. After all, the show deserves applause for the way it is definitely weaving long-term emotional arcs, characters throughout each installment in ways that they are increasingly rewarding to watch. This season, we've seen Spock question his identity, both in terms of how best to reconcile his human and Vulcan halves, and how that impacts what kind of man he ultimately wants to become. Part of the reason that Aspen/Angel's betrayal hits so hard emotionally is that the character spends half the episode giving what is honestly fairly decent advice to Spock about his ongoing internal struggles, and that he's the only one forcing himself to make a binary choice between the two halves and make him whole, and that he can forge a new path that embraces both sides of who he is. As I mentioned earlier, Kyle, this scene, and I'm even watching it again knowing that she's going to betray him, is still a very cool scene about the advice that she's giving him.
Yeah, or even at the end of the episode when she's talking to him right before she escapes too, and just tell him you don't have to be one or the other, Spock. Be who you are.
Yeah, I know. It's like you're kind of a cool pirate. Lacey goes on to say, perhaps we should have guessed the moment that the Serene Squall gave the episode opening voiceover to Spock's fiancée T'Pring that the Vulcan angel is trying to rescue would be a familiar face, or at least a known quantity. But the fact that it's Spock's half-brother Sybok adds another emotional wrinkle to the proceedings, as does the fact that T'Pring knows her intended well enough now to understand that his last-minute confession of an affair with Chapel was a ruse. Look, I know Spock and T'Pring are iconically doomed by the time Star Trek the original series rolls around and all, but they are truly such fabulous partners together, and to be honest, Stan looks like a doormat. The relationship has been given so much depth and treated with such respect, that care, that you can't help but hope that somehow way, these two crazy kids are going to work it out. I was genuinely heartbroken when I thought T'Pring was buying the lie. Kyle, I forget the original character T'Pring, but it's one of those things watching this series, like, yes, we know Pike's going to end up in a chair and die eventually. I kind of don't want to see Spock and T'Pring break up or whatever brings them apart.
That's the thing with the show, though. We know what's coming, but they're making it so enjoyable in the here and the now that, you know, you kind of forget about it, and then you realize, like, when the episode is over, oh yeah, wait, and it makes it a little difficult, but you're just so wrapped up in how amazing the stories and the characters are right now that you kind of forget about that.
Yeah, agreed, definitely. And she finishes the article by saying, then again, his chemistry between Ethan Peck and Jess Bush is also outstanding. So maybe I'm just spoiled for choice on the Spock romance front. I don't know. At any rate, this is certainly not the last we'll see of these characters or these subplots. So this is me trying to trust the story is going somewhere great. It hasn't let me down after all. Rating 5 out of 5. And I want to come back around on the discussion between Spock and our Nurse Chapel a little bit later.
Yep. In fact, I think that might be an away mission too, Kevin. I just want to add in here too that there's something very special going on with this show, and I know people who love Discovery because they love how the cast is with the fans, and the cast is absolutely amazing with the fans. I will never not say bad words about the cast of Discovery as a whole, but this might be the most perfect Star Trek show to hit with fans, story-wise and cast-wise. Kevin, I'm going to say it, maybe ever. Because it took Next Generation a little bit for people to kind of get adjusted and used to, because they hadn't seen Star Trek in so long. We know the kind of the history, but everything just right out of the gate is hitting perfect with this particular Star Trek show.
This is true, but you have to give those Star Trek, 90s series some leeway, because it was a different time, different storytelling, and they had more episodes where, this one they really kind of got to pick and choose because they only got 10 episodes. But yeah, they're right out of the gate. I got to give them full on credit, and thus as live action new Star Trek so far, this is my favorite.
And who would have thought Spock, the ladies' man?
I know, right?
Well, we're going to take a quick break here, let you know what else is going on around the Fandom Podcast Network. And when we come back, we got a little bit of trivia for you, and we're going to hit up that transporter and activate some away missions. But first, here is what is happening on the Fandom Podcast Network.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. We'd like to continue to feed your ears by inviting you to listen to these other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. It starts with our flagship show, Culture Clash, discussing the latest in entertainment pop culture. Bloody Kings, Immortals Take Notice, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theaters, where we celebrate our favorite movies. Time Warp, the Fandom Flashback podcast discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie and TV pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Union Federation, our Star Trek and Orville show. Hair Metal, the 80s and early 90s rock metal podcast. Type 40, our show covering the time-traveling Doctor Who universe with host Dan Hadley. Lethal Mullet, an 80s and 90s action film podcast with host Adam P. O'Brien. Also check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast with hosts Scott, Derek, and Nathan. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast, a deep dive into the final frontier with host Mark Newbold and Adam P. O'Brien. And check out our newest shows, The Fandom Show, our monthly Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube exclusive show about the month's hottest topics in fandom, and the FPN True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the related Marvel television and streaming MCU universe, including the connections to the original Marvel comics. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on several platforms. Please subscribe to the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel to receive notifications of new podcast episodes and live events. You can enjoy all of the Fandom Podcast Network audio podcasts on our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. The Fandom Podcast Network is on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast and iTunes. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can also find the Fandom Podcast Network on Instagram at Fandom Podcast Network and on Twitter at FanPod Network. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
And we're back. Hopefully you're enjoying everything on the Fandom Podcast Network and on the BQN Network, our good friends over there. And hopefully we're giving you great podcasts to feed your ears. But Kevin, it is that time again to go into your security files because you have some trivia for us for this week.
I do. And I got it from reliable sources, pirate sources.
Were they Klingon? Are we sure were they Klingon? I don't want to cause an intergalactic incident.
No. They make a certain type of ale.
Okay, gotcha. Don't tell Amy, she's not here.
Okay, here's some trivia for the Serene Squall episode. The name of the pirate ship is the Serene Squall. This translates to calm storm. A little bit of a contradiction there, Kyle.
Yeah.
And this also shows the first appearance of a Jeffries tube on the series.
Hey, Kevin, wait. How much roomier are the Jeffrey tubes in Strange New Worlds compared to any other Star Trek?
As roomy as the script says so.
Yeah, exactly. Because they seemed awful roomy for Nurse Chapel. I'm just saying.
Yeah, they do get a little bit smaller, in the future, I guess. Yeah. The energy beams used in an attempt to trap the Enterprise looked very similar to those in the Star Trek original series episode, The Tholian Web from 1968. Dr. Aspen / Angel makes the comment Paktar, Pakta, a variation of potato and potato when talking to T'Pring. Paktar is a type of Vulcan food mentioned in Star Trek Enterprise Breaking the Ice. I didn't catch that, but I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
When at the helm of the Serene Squall, Pike stood behind what looked like a modern interpretation of a ship's wheel, appropriate for a pirate ship.
I love that. That was a great little touch they did.
Yep. And of course, as we mentioned before, this episode marks the first appearance of Sybok, who will go on to play a prominent role in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, released in 1989. Number 1 and Captain Pike discuss a plan to incite mutiny among the pirate crew in order to escape, much like they had on a planet called Alpha Braga 4, which is named for a longtime Star Trek writer and showrunner, and also works on the Orville, Brandon Braga. The fact that Pike knows where he will end up in 10 years gives him a cockiness and absolute confidence that everything will end up well. The fact that he has to make it there makes him feel like he's a little invulnerable until then, and it shows in his behavior. No fear and a bit of arrogance. Now, this little piece of trivia is obviously someone's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to ask you about that, Kyle. I think that's interesting that someone put this out there. And I want to get your feeling on this. Do you think because he knows where he's going to end, that he plays things with a little more, not saying cockiness.
Bravado?
Yeah, maybe.
I think this is a great point because it's actually kind of the flip side of what he was dealing with at the beginning of the series, where he was doom and gloom because he knew what his fate was. But now as we've seen it, and I think this is actually would carry true when you know what your fate is and you've seen your future and you know, okay, it's 10 years from now. Nothing's going to happen to me in the next 10 years, you know? So I'm feeling good about every situation I'm in because I know, I guess that's the price you pay for knowing a bad future is you get to live maybe in the moment more in that aspect because, you know, hey, nothing going to happen to me. I know when my time is.
Excellent point. Agreed.
Well, with that, Kevin, I'm going to do a little bit of warming up of the transporter because it is time to go on some away missions. Kevin, away mission 1, I got to say, A Pirate's Life for me. This episode of Strange New Worlds.
Oh, ho, ho, A Pirate's Life for me.
Don't get us in trouble with Disney now. Come on. Yeah, this episode had a lot of fun with this aspect of the fact that they were going into non-Federation space, and as Pike put it so greatly, it's the Wild Wild West out here.
Wild Wild West. The Wild Wild West.
Apparently, this is Kevin Rice's greatest hits podcast.
Remember Wild Wild West by the Escape Club?
Oh yeah,
Love and eyes in a wild wild air.
Of course, Will Smith's famous thing. If I'm not careful, I might get
Cool Mo D was the one that did the other Wild Wild West song.
Yeah.
And of course, he has the really not so good Wild Wild West movie. Yes, by.
So I want to hit on this aspect of that away mission first. It's just the fun they had with these space pirates and this just the feel of non-Federation space. You could tell that the writers were just like, oh man, we get to write pirates. We are going to take this to the full kilt, even to where at the end of the episode, you've got even Captain Pike having a little pirate fun at the end as well.
Yes.
And I mean, just every aspect of it, from Pike causing the mutiny, Pike trying to win over the crew with better food, and just how the pirates operated and turning out where Captain Angel was a plant all the time, working her plan from the inside. Everything with this was just so much fun, Kevin.
Well, you know, you have to keep in mind too, they're in this 5-year mission, and when they're exploring new space, they're going to be out of non-Federation space, and it is the Wild Wild West, and that's a great analogy to the way the things were, you know, here, you know, in the United States for, you know, back in the late 1700s to the 1800s, when a lot of the you know, states weren't quite formed yet or even explored, and a lot of shenanigans going on there. And this also makes for a great opportunity to write some fun characters that don't have to sit with Starfleet or Klingon or Romulan guidelines that we've seen so much before.
Question for you though. One of the things that Pike does is talks about causing issues with Klingons, and that's how he helps with mutiny. Remind me, have we heard mention of Klingon in Strange New Worlds before?
Yes, they've been mentioned before, just not seen.
Yeah, I couldn't remember because I'm going to be curious to see what they look like once we finally see them in Strange New Worlds.
I just hope they don't look like they did in Discovery.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you. I would love to see something kind of like Star Trek 3 type of Klingons that we saw. That would be kind of cool if they kind of went for that. You know, that would be kind of neat. You know,
yeah, that would be interesting. But well, we had this great fun side to this episode too, Kevin. The twist at the end throws a little bit of seriousness into it and changes how we actually look at this episode because of the connection. We get Cybok and obviously the connections to the Final Frontier, Star Trek V. My question is this, Kevin. Is this the last we see of Cybok or have mention of Cybok?
Oh God, no. We're so seeing Cybok again. You don't tease something like that and not do it. This is what's gotten me really excited because the way that you know, when you know Shatner directed that movie, right? And I don't know how much, I can't remember if he helped write it or if he was one of the writers or what. I can't remember that, or if it was something else. But I think this is really, really cool because the fact that all of a sudden we got, you know, Spock's half brother, who is has these human emotions, yet he is part Vulcan, threw a lot of people off. Let's just be honest here. A lot of people didn't like this and didn't like the way that he was portrayed. I personally don't have a problem with it anymore whatsoever. I might have at first, but I want to see the origins of this relationship and the fact, let's find out why Spock never mentioned this before and why it was written like that. And so I think they're gonna have some issues, and I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah, I agree. I think we get more mention of Cybok, maybe not in this season, but in future seasons of Strange New Worlds. I think it's going to lead into clearing up some of the mysteries that we still have from the Final Frontier. When I recently rewatched that film, too, I can see when I remember initially watching it, Kevin, and being like, "There's some really corny stuff going on here."
Right.
When the first time I saw, but watching it again, revisiting it, you tend to switch and look more into the mystery of especially what's going on with Cybok and exactly how he developed his mental thinking. And I'm hoping we kind of get more into that in future appearances of him in Strange New Worlds, or even if he's just kind of like this hanging presence for a while and we see his disciples causing issues. I think that would be a fun way to do that as well. So
yeah, the other thing too is how he was able to take control of people in Star Trek V. Not necessarily brainwash them, but that's the easiest way I could think of to explain, because that's what he did. He was able to take control of people's will to a certain degree and make them see what he wanted to see and convince them to do what he wanted to do. Ironically, take over a ship, by the way. So I'm wondering if he's going to have that ability, or at least show signs of it when we do see him again. And I'm not saying we're going to see him this season, but I do hope we do see him.
Yeah, I highly doubt with 3 episodes left we'll see him again this season, but I think there's definitely a plan for more Cybok in the future. But okay, that is going to wrap up our first away mission. So I'm going to hit the teleporter again to take us on site for away mission 2. Nice.
Sorry.
Garth Alger, everybody. Thank you. He'll be here all week. As we've done all season with Strange New Worlds, our second away mission is still getting to know your crew. Chapel Hart Spock. Kevin, we really haven't dove a lot into our thoughts with Spock yet with Strange New Worlds. I think this episode really, you're starting to see Ethan Peck get into what his version of Spock is going to be. And it's a version of Spock we've never really seen, I think, to this point. A Spock that is really more struggling with his two sides than ever before from what we've seen. And yet there's great little moments because of it. Obviously his relationship with T'Pring is also a great thing. But, I loved how Ethan Peck, in just his own facial expressions, when we're in the trap and Pike tells him to take a hunch. And it's like he just has that look on his face like it's the most horrifying thing he's ever had to do in his life, is take a hunch of which one to shoot. Obviously, too,
it's like, messing with your pets and you do funny stuff and put them in front of them. It's like, yeah, ask a Vulcan to use their hunch.
Yeah, exactly. I
use your gut. Use your gut.
Yeah. We talked about Dr. Aspen and the advice that she was giving to Spock earlier, but I mean, it rang so true, and that's what made it so interesting with this character. And obviously, now we knowing she is married to his half brother, supposedly, that influence from quote unquote his sister-in-law, I guess, made it very interesting as well, because her points were legitimate, Kevin. I mean, it wasn't like she was trying to give him like this line of BS.
No, that's what made her so likable. That's why I want to see her again. I want to see her and Cybok together, getting into trouble. Bring them back.
And of course, the romance that isn't there. Chapel and Spock. I love these two together anyway because they have great chemistry. But I love that scene where they're walking down the corridor and she's trying to get Spock's attention, talking about razor blade, and then she's like, what else? She's talking about the guy with the razor blade, like, oh, he has razor blades in his palms, because he's so distracted. And then at the end of it, when she's like, "What have you learned?" and it's like, "Oh, well, I should listen. That you're charming." And Spock's replying and tell her how charming she is and everything like that. And she just has this big smile on her face. I love these two together. They've been flirting. They've had this little flirtation, at least on Chapel's side, with Spock since episode 1. And I just love how this grows. And I don't know, Kevin, that was not just a sell job by Spock on that kiss. I think there was a little human emotion in that one too.
Oh God. Okay, first of all, Chapel is crushing hard on Spock.
Oh yeah.
She's keeping it in check, but she's letting it slip. And Spock, I tell you right now, that kiss. I mean, if you look the way, okay, you know what that reminded me of? Remember that scene in Matrix 2 where they meet up with what's her name that was dressed in white, Monica Bellucci's character.
Oh, well, yeah.
And she wants Neo to kiss her, and he does, but he doesn't do it like he means it. And, you know, Trinity's right there going, what are you trying to do? Like, she wants to kill her now. She's like, no, I want you to kiss me and mean it. I'm paraphrasing. You remember that, right?
Yeah.
And then you know, Neo gets into it and gives her the thrill that she was looking for, to get a real kiss and see what that feels like. And that's what I was thinking when I was watching that scene, because when they finally end and the camera is on Nurse Chapel, she's feeling it hard right there. And speaking of hard, I think Spock might have been having a little bit of Vulcan chub. Just saying. Yeah, I said it.
There went our family friendly rating again. Thank you, Kevin. The thing about it is I love the fact that Spock realized who the person they were actually that they were trying to get was, and then pulled this quote unquote act. And while I think he got very lucky in the fact that T'Pring understood what Spock was doing. Yeah, there's chemistry there between those two.
I also had a flashback real quick. Sorry to interrupt. Mm-hmm. I had a flashback to that one episode of TNG where Picard has to court Troy's mom in front, you know, in front of, was it the Ferengi on the other ship or something like that? He was trying to make them believe that he was in love with her.
And Kevin, you know, I think one of the things that was most identifiable at the end of the episode too was you have Spock, you know, and T'Pring coming back together, but you have Spock putting Chapel in the, as we all hate to hear it, friend zone.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to enjoy seeing her have more discussions, Nurse Chapel with Spock. But I do want to mention Ethan Peck's portrayal. You touched on it earlier.
Absolutely.
I love him so much better now than I did in when we first were introduced to him as this mystery in Discovery, and we had Scruffy Spock, you know, but he has totally come into it, and he is just killing it as a you know, showing us more of Spock's side, because I love the fact that when we watch his portrayal, we can watch the original series, we can watch the original series movies, and even his guest starring in the Kelvin Timeline movie and also on TNG, that his portrayal is not messing it up for us and going, nah, that's not what I'm feeling. It's not that feeling of regret that I get when I watch Luke Skywalker in the sequel trilogy and feeling like it got messed up for me. Not feeling that at all with this. And I love that.
One of the things I love about Ethan Peck's portrayal, and you can correct me if you think I'm a little off base here, Kevin. It feels like, because of where Spock is at this point, and is that because he's not fully in complete control of what his emotional center is, even though he was raised on Vulcan and stuff. But when he lets Spock's human emotions kind of make appearances, it feels a little more natural than I think even when Leonard Nimoy would do it in the original series. It's kind of almost like a natural flow between the two. Like they just kind of.
Yeah, I see more of his human side in this, and that's not a bad thing. So I think you're right there, and that's what we like about him is that we can relate to his human side a little bit more, where in the original series it's more Vulcan-y, and that's fine. And he struggles with that, but I think he's still struggling with both. But he's still Vulcan-y Spock in this as well. But when you see these little things being questioned about his human side and either suppressing it or being encouraged not to, I love it. It's great.
Well, and I think what it could lead to is the fact in TOS, I thought he was a little bit more Vulcan than he is on here on Strange New Worlds. And it could be events that we see happen in Strange New World push him even farther into his Vulcan side going into what would be the episodes of TOS.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, before we close up though and get into some subspace signals, you got a couple little other points you got to break out, including, are you going to cross the streams on me here, sir?
Yes, but first there's something that's not on here that I wanted to bring up while watching this episode again. Una, number 1. We're waiting to kind of learn more about her. And Rebecca Romaine is doing a great job with her. But I'm digging that look that she has where the outfit is like a skirt, but then she's got the pants on underneath.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
Just saying.
Okay.
Kind of hot.
I got a question. That reminds me.
Hold on, real quick. She kind of reminds me of that like quiet, hot librarian.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she was
on that show, The Librarian.
You kind of want to open those pages a little bit.
Well, like I said, she was on that show, The Librarian. So
yeah,
I got a question for you though, Kevin, because I was wondering this in my rewatch of it. The scene where they're on the bridge, and Pike does the pirate. Is it just me, or did that feel like he might have ad-libbed that? Because it looks like the reaction Rebecca Romaine has as number 1, where she's trying to fight the laughter back, he did that, and it was such a golden take that they left it in.
You know what? Yeah, I think there's something to that, Kyle. That's a good observation because she's like she's staying in character as Una going, we're not going to have any of that. No, stop. And he kind of like, he kind of gives that little disappointed like look, like you're harsh on my mellow type of thing. Maybe he played it up a little bit more in that scene, and they used that scene. But I think there's something to that observation, Kyle. That's a good one. Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to watch this week's Ready Room yet. I might have to watch it to see if they say anything about that on there. So
I think it was kind of funny. A couple of more things here. I think it was funny that they mentioned to Pike, "You're such a Boy Scout." He's like, "What? No, I'm not a Boy Scout." And then number 1 goes, "Yeah, it's actually in your file."
And then just again, it's these little things like that make this show so great. and then it's like, doesn't it feel like the rest of the episode he's doing things to prove he's not the Boy Scout?
Yeah. And by the way, I just want to go back to that kiss. I just I have the episode playing in the back, and it just played again. One of the best kisses in Star Trek. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah.
That scene is hot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that as well.
What's so good about that kiss too is the fact that she doesn't sell it right away. If you watch her arms, she doesn't sell it, and then she gets into it. Watch her arms and how she responds.
Yeah, and then the camera like looks back on Spock, and he's like, "To bring who?"
Yeah, exactly.
Just exactly. Okay, so one last observation here. Immediately when I saw this guy, the other lead pirate, his name is Remy, and there's some funny scenes while he's like talking to Pike, and Pike's like saying, "Are you sure you want to do this? Go up against the Federation, and you sure you want to turn us into Klingons because you might end up dead?" I immediately, and I got to ask you this, Kyle. I immediately thought of the guy Taserface from Guardians of the Galaxy and Marvel comic history that Rocket the Raccoon makes fun of when he finds out who his name is. He totally reminded me of Taserface from Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Am I the only one here, Kyle? Help me out. Did you think of that?
I thought of that, but not quite in the same level I think you did. But, Remy has a much better hair club for men than Taserface does too.
True. But what's funny is, the Ravagers that, Taserface is part of, they're pirates, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And exactly. I totally had a Taserface vibe. If I'm alone, I'm fine. If you're listening to this, and you'll agree, let me know.
Yeah, no, I can see where you would definitely get it from.
Taserface.
Well, and
just the fact, choice?
And just the fact he doesn't really feel like he's should be in the position he's in. I mean, just
Mhm.
and I'm sorry, I still love it. It might be one of my favorite scenes is when Pike is like, "Let me cook for your crew. Let me get them some real food. What's wrong with my cooking?"
Great episode. Absolutely love it. Probably my favorite episode, I think. What about you?
It's right up there for me as well. It's been great, but you know what? It is that time in the show.
Did I mention that kiss was hot? I'm just saying.
It was.
Hold on. Before we end it real quick, is there any other kisses in Star Trek that you can go, wow? I mean, when we see the couples develop, like Riker and Troy, even with B'Elanna and Paris, and there's some scenes with the girlfriend of the week with Picard and Vosh and stuff like that.
I do have a thought.
And then, I'm sorry. What is it? In Deep Space Nine, what's her name? In
Dax,
Cisco. Oh, that one too. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. But go ahead. What's your thought?
Kirk Uhura in the original series.
Yeah, I don't know. Just because that was kind of an alternate universe type thing. I don't know. Maybe more with him and what's the other one? Shoot, the one where the woman dies at the end. And
I know which one you're talking. I can't think of her name.
I'm forgetting. Famous actress. I'm forgetting her name. But anyway, I'm just gonna throw that out there. Passionate kisses in Star Trek. Where does this one rate?
Yeah, this is when we need the girls here. So
it's true. It's true.
Yeah. Amy Haley, when you come back from vacation and get to feeling better, we're gonna ask you this. This is gonna be very important. So pay attention, guys. With that though, let's intercept some subspace signals. Well, as we're trying to intercept those pirate radio stations out there, what we have.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. Like I said, I can't tell you where you can find not only the Union Federation, but all the great shows of the Fandom Podcast Network and the BQN Network. Of course, you can find all the great shows of the Fandom Podcast Network on our homepage at fpnet.podbean.com. Of course, visit our YouTube channel to see all the videos of our video versions of our shows. And of course, too, we are on all the major podcast catchers out there. Same for the BQN. You can find the BQN on any of the major podcast catchers out there as well. They've got some phenomenal shows, including All Good Things in Galaxy Class. Also, too, you can email us at theunionfederation@gmail.com. Kevin, where can people find you on social media?
That scene when he does his pirate thing, I was looking at number one after you brought it up. I think you're right. I think that was probably done
Ad-lib?
with a little bit of improv. Yeah. Because she's trying not to smile. It's pretty funny. My name is Kevin Reitzel. I am on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. And of course, you can find me in the Union Fed Facebook group. And of course, you can find me on Facebook.
Yeah. My name is Kyle. You can find me on Twitter at Nurse Chapel. I'm here for your rebound.
Nice.
But really, you can find me on Twitter at AKyleW or on Instagram at AKyleFandom. You can find our awesome science officer, Haley Stoddard, on Twitter at Trekkie01D. You can find Amy Nelson, the queen of everything BQN. The N stands for Nelson, at Miss Amy Nelson on Twitter. And of course, too, you can find Union Federation Podcast on Twitter at Union Fed Podcast, and of course, Fandom Podcast Network at FanPod Network.
I wish I would have thought of that. At Nurse Chapel Rebound.
You know what that means? I've got claim on TV wife, Kevin. I'm just saying, I've got claim on it now. Finally, let's look ahead to our Orb of Prophecy. Next week, we will have, of course, continuing with our 2-episode format as Strange New Worlds and the Orville continue to run simultaneously. For Strange New Worlds, we will be looking at episode 8, while the Orville New Horizons will be covering episode 4 of season 3, Gently Falling Rain. There's going to be some Krill influence in that one.
Yes. And Strange New Worlds is called the Elysian. I just lost it. Sorry. The Elysian something.
You're still mad because I put in for rebound options already. So
yeah,
you're distracted.
Go.
Yeah. Not for another 5 minutes. Then something else will pop up on social media. Thanks to everybody out there for listening. As always, it is a great pleasure to bring you this wonderful podcast covering all things Star Trek and the Orville. We hope you're enjoying it, whether you're listening on the Fandom Podcast Network or on the BQN Network. Until next time, goodbye, everybody. And hailing frequencies are now closed.
Bye.